Chapter 1, Stuck. Yahoo! Kittredges whooped with joy. She flew into the kitchen waving an envelope over her head. Look, everybody, she shouted. It's from Charlie. Kit's mother, Dad, and Aunt Millie gathered around her eagerly. A letter from Charlie was always a treat. Here, Dad, Kit said. You read it. Mr. Kittredge dried his hands on the dish towel wrapped around his waist before he took the letter. It was a hot, sticky August afternoon, and the kitchen was steamy because the grown-ups were sterilizing glass jars in boiling water to prepare them for jams and preserves. Dear folks, Dad read aloud, I'm sitting on a patch of snow. Snow? Exclaimed Kit enviously. Shh! Shush Mother and Aunt Millie. Dad continued, on a mountaintop here in Glacier National Park. There's nothing but blue sky and pine trees around me. This week, we're working on a stone wall next to a road called Going to the Sun Highway. It's hard, but all of us fellows are glad to have work to do. We have fun, too. I told my baseball team that my kid sister Kit is the best catcher in Cincinnati. Well, break time's over. I'll write again soon. I miss you. I wish all of you could see how pretty Montana is. Love, Charlie. For a moment after Dad finished reading, everyone just stood there grinning. It was as if Charlie had sent a brisk mountain breeze in his letter, a breeze that blew all the way from Glacier Park to stir the stifling air in the kitchen, refresh everyone, and lift their spirits. The kiss of Mother and Dad exchanged a wistful look. They missed Charlie, she thought. Kit knew how they felt. She, too, missed Charlie and his jokes, his big guffawing laugh, and the way he took the stairs two at a time. Charlie had been far away in Montana since June. He was working for the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was a program started by President Roosevelt to provide jobs for young men who were out of work because of the Depression. This is for you, Kit, said Dad. He handed Kit a photo of Charlie and a group of young men. They were in a forest, smiling broadly at the camera. Kit saw a note in the back. Hey, Squirt, she read aloud. I thought you liked this photo of me and my CCC buddies. Write and tell me what you're up to. XO Charlie. Kit rose on her toes in delight. She loved writing. I'll go make one of my newspapers for Charlie right now, she announced. She slipped a photo into her pocket and took off flying toward the hall. Kit, said Mother, have you finished your chores? Kit crash-landed to a stop. No, she admitted, but... Please do, dear, said Mother, before you do anything else. Aunt Millie added, and please give the chickens fresh water. They'll be thirsty on a hot day like today. Kit scowled, but none of the grown-ups noticed. They'd already turned back to their work. Clouds of steam rose from the pots on the stove, and the glass jars clanked and clanked in the boiling water. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, said Aunt Millie cheerfully, wiping her foggy eyeglasses on her apron. Kit knew Aunt Millie was quoting the witches in a play by Shakespeare called Macbeth. Right now, Kit felt as low down as a mean witch. She let the screen door slam shut behind her and stalked over to the chicken pen. The chickens usually greeted her with energetic squawking. But today, they were under a listless spell because of the heat. They ignored Kit and didn't bother to collect their thanks when she filled their water pan. I'm just a drudge, Kit grumbled to herself, feeling cross that even the chickens seemed to take her for granted. She picked up her broom and went back to work, beating the rug hung over the clothesline. Mop, sweep, scrub, polish, do the laundry, wash the dishes, feed the chickens, weed the garden. My chores never end. Dust and dirt billowed up off the rug and stuck to Kit's sweaty face and arms so that she was soon as spotty as an old brown toad. She kicked off her sandals, which, like all of her clothes, were too small. But freeing her feet did not cheer her up. The more Kit thought about her situation, the crosser she became. She'd never have time to write a newspaper for Charlie. After beating the rug, she was supposed to help Dad clean out the gutters. After that... it would be time to help Mother cook and serve dinner. And after dinner, there'd be the dishes to wash, dry, and put away. There would be lots of dishes, too. 11 people lived in Kit's house. A year ago, Mr. Kittredge had lost his job because of the Depression, and Kit's family had turned their home into a boarding house to earn money. There were 7 boarders now, 2 nurses named Miss Hart and Miss Fanny, a musician named Mr. Peck, an elderly couple named Mr. and Mrs. Bell, and a lady named Mrs. Howard and her son Sterling, who was exactly Kit's age. But even though the house was jam-packed with paying guests, and even though the Kittredges pinched every penny till it squealed, they still just eked out barely enough money to pay the bills month after month. It seemed to Kit that, just like chores, the depression was never going to end. Kit whacked the rug harder than was strictly necessary. Wow, said Sterling, crossing the yard toward Kit. I wish your broom was a bat and the rug was a ball. That would have been a home run. And that, Kit said grimly as she walloped the rug again, is as close as I'll get to swinging a baseball bat this summer. Dust from the rug surrounded Sterling like a dirty cloud, but he didn't budge. He stood patiently, waiting for Kit to explain why she was so grumpy. Kit's dog Grace ambled over. Grace liked to be wherever a conversation was going on. She plunked herself down and drooled on Kit's kicked-off sandals. We had a letter from Charlie, Kit said. He sent me this. Kit took Charlie's photo out of her pocket and gave it to Sterling. Read the back. Sterling did. Then he said, let's go make him a newspaper. I can't, Kit exploded. I have to do my dumb chores. Kit knew it was unfair to snap at Sterling. Chores weren't his fault. Besides, he worked hard too. At the beginning of the summer, he'd surprised everyone by upping getting himself a job selling newspapers on a street corner. Sterling still looked like a pipsqueak, but he acted sturdier and more sure of himself. Kit thought it was because he had a real job out in the world and was earning money, just like Charlie, who sent home $25 of the $30 he earned through the CCC every month. Sorry you can't write a newspaper for Charlie, said Sterling. Well, what would I write about anyway, said Kit, putting the photo back in her pocket. Dusting? The laundry? I'm not doing anything exciting. Charlie's the one who's having an adventure. Kit sighed and leaned on her broom. The truth is, she admitted, I'm jealous of Charlie. Lucky Charlie was living in a place where there were mountain peaks and hidden valleys, cool blue lakes and dark green pines, rushing streams and thundering waterfalls. By contrast, Kit's life was flat, colorless, and humdrum. I wish I could have an adventure, she said. I'm tired of doing the same old chores. I feel so bogged down, so stuck. I like to fly away and escape. In that case, said Sterling, I don't wish your broom was a baseball bat. I wish it was a witch's broom. Kit laughed in spite of herself. She straddled the broom and pretended to try to take off, but remained, of course, solidly planted on the ground. I give up, she said. Looks like my broom stuck too. Kit slapped at a mosquito. Too late. Now there'd be a bite on her neck, which was already sunburned and itchy with sweat. It was a few days later. Kit was in the vegetable garden, moving slowly between rows of tomato plants and picking the ripest tomatoes off the vines. Aunt Millie had declared today tomato harvest day. She'd decided that most of the tomatoes were ready to be preserved, and she did not want to waste one tomato, or 1 minute either. She had rousted everyone out of bed at dawn and hurried them to work. By now, it was mid-morning. Kit and Sterling were outside picking. Mother was in the kitchen stewing and preserving. Dad was carrying jars of preserved tomato to the basement. Aunt Millie buzzed back and forth, inside and outside, bossing both pickers and preservers. We'll be glad for all this work come winter, she said happily. Think of the money we'll save by eating food we've grown ourselves. And it'll remind us of summer. When we eat these tomatoes, we'll remember what Shakespeare calls summer's honey breath. Kit and Sterling smiled at each other through the tomato plants. They were used to the way Aunt Millie quoted Shakespeare. She'd been a teacher for many years, and she couldn't help teaching wherever she was. As usual, Aunt Millie and Shakespeare were quite right. The air did feel like honey. Liquid, heavy and sticky. Even so, Kit was grateful to be outdoors. The day before, she practically melted in the suffocating kitchen helping Aunt Millie make peach jam. Kit had stirred the pot of thick goo on the stove until her hand was glued to the spoon with peach juice and her feet were pasted to the floor with jam. Today in the garden, there was at least a sluggish breeze rustling the limp leaves every so often. The tomatoes glowed red and were so plump, they seemed about to burst their smooth skins. Each one had a satisfying heft when Kit held it in her hand. Her basket was heavy when she stood up and carried it to Aunt Millie, who took it inside. Kit had knelt down and gone back to picking when Grace barked a friendly bark. Grace was supposed to be a guard dog, but she seemed to think that anyone who came to the house had come only to admire her, and therefore should be welcomed politely. Kit poked her head up above the tomatoes. "Hey," said someone. Kit turned and saw a stranger standing at the edge of the garden. It was a teenage boy in a dusty cap and stained, baggy, roughly patched trousers. "Hey yourself," Kit said. "Hey yourself," Kit said. Now Sterling raised his head too. The teenage boy grinned such a big white grin that Kit and Sterling had to smile back. Kit knew he was a hobo. He had the same scruffy, scrawny look as all the hobos and tramps who came to the house looking for a handout or a job to do in return for food. The boy bent down and scratched Grace's back. He nodded toward the garden. "The tomatoes look good," he said. Just then the screen door opened and Aunt Millie came out. The boy's grin disappeared. He shot up straight, pulled his cap off, and pushed his shaggy dark hair out of his eyes. "How do, ma'am?" he said. His voice was respectful and a little wary. He sounded as if he half expected Aunt Millie to shoo him away. But Kit knew Aunt Millie would never shoo away a stray dog, much less a stray boy. "What can I do for you, son?" Aunt Millie asked. "Well, ma'am," said the boy, "I was just saying to the young lady yonder what a good crop of tomatoes you've got. Your string beans are ready to be picked, too. I'd be glad to help. Looks like maybe you could use a hand." "Looks like maybe you could use a bite to eat," said Aunt Millie. "You're as skinny as a string bean yourself." The boy grinned his wide, wonderful grin again. "I'd be obliged," he said, "but not until after I work." Aunt Millie smiled. "What's your name, son?" she asked. "William Shepherd," answered the boy, "but nowadays, most folks call me Texas Will or just plain Will." "All right, just plain Will," said Aunt Millie. She handed him an empty basket. "You can help Kit and Sterling with the picking. Mind, there won't be any pay in it for you. None but lunch, anyway." "That'll do fine, ma'am," said Will. He bent over a tomato plant and went straight to work. "I'll tell the folks inside there'll be one more for lunch," said Aunt Millie. She went back into the kitchen. Kit was burning with curiosity about Will. She had hundreds of questions to ask him. Also, she wanted to hear Will talk more. She liked the way he pronounced his name Wheel and called Aunt Millie Mayum. "Are you from Texas?" Kit asked. "Yep," Will answered without stopping his work. "How'd you get as far as Cincinnati?" Sterling asked. "Riding the rails mostly," said Will. "Hopping freights. I ride freight trains for free by jumping into empty boxcars." "Aren't you kind of young?" Kit asked. To be a hobo, I mean." "I'm 15, said Will. "There are lots of hobos my age, some even younger." He glanced at Kit. "Girls not much older than you ride the rails." "They do?" Kit asked, fascinated. "Yep," said Will. "Gosh," thought Kit. "What a life that must be. Very exciting and very unstuck."